Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us again here on A World Awakening. It was just a couple of years ago that I decided during the pandemic that we needed to do this show again. As you know, some of you know, it was a blog talk show years and years ago when my co-host was George R. Lopez. And then we took an extended hiatus. And on 11/11/2020, along with Tony Rathman, my producer, we launched it again at a time that I think was of critical importance to those that were seeking some assistance in a difficult, very difficult time, especially when it came to how we were processing our emotions, how different life had become. It was a very strange time. And, that period where we didn't know about any help in terms of vaccines or anything, it was a really scary time. It was what I referred to at the time as legitimate fear, not movie theater fear, real fear. That you could go to the grocery store and die because of it. Thankfully, we are through the worst of the pandemic, but we have other issues and we have other things to discuss. And this is never going away. People need to be clear about that. It's not going away. How are we going to deal with all that is being thrown at us at this time in our lives, at this pivotal inflection point in our evolution? That said, I can't think of anyone better to have this conversation with than my co-host on Soul School Sojourn, which airs here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting every Monday night. It is my pleasure and my joy to bring my friend, in some ways, my mentor, my co-host, Jeff Turner.
Hey, Andrea.
Hi, darling. You are a gentleman and a scholar, and you mean the world to me. And everybody who has ever seen Soul School knows what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it. You are an author, you are a lecturer, and for the last 2 years, you have appeared with me at the UFO Contact. See, I've got my thing.
Yes.
To remind me every day that I get to be a part of that world, where you can go and have discussions about our galactic family and no one is going to look at you like you have 3 heads. It's very liberating atmosphere that Deb and RJ and Mike Smith have created at the UFO Contact. And I think it was last year that we sat and talked about, what are we going to do with this union between us, this camaraderie, this simpatico, this like-mindedness that we share. That's probably not a word, but I have a degree in this language, so I'll abuse it as I see fit. So we talked, not long, but we talked and said, something will come of this. And then I ended up going with KGRA. We got noticed, Tony and I. Tony has had to take a hiatus because of his job, but our producer, Bill, has been phenomenal. I mean, just really stepped up to the plate in every conceivable way. And, and then for us to have gotten Chanel as our producer for Soul School Sojourn, which I can finally say without it, becoming a tongue twister. What has your experience of that been like? I want our regular viewers on A World Awakening to tap into Soul School.
Mhm.
I think that it's just a wondrous platform. It's just an hour, but in that hour, you can go from here to here in terms of, bringing your vibration back down into a more peaceful place.
Yes.
But I want to know, we've been doing this for a while now. What do you think about Soul School? What has it enriched your life? Has it been a valuable platform for you as well as others? I want to know that you enjoy it as much as I do. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
Mhm.
You know me. You are free to say anything that you want to say. But I want to know how it has impacted your life personally.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on tonight. And it's anytime, any excuse to just have a conversation with you, I'm going to take you up on. So whether it's being recorded or not doesn't really matter. But as for Soul School, again, as I've said before, but even with that, I'm just so honored. I'm so honored to be able to share that hour with you weekly, and to be able to have the kind of conversations that we're having, to reach out to people in the manner that we are able to reach out to people in that hour. It has been just quite an experience. And as one who comes from a more religious background in Christian ministry and in the pastorate, there's a very limited amount of things you can talk about, and there are no limits up here, but there's often a governor put on speech and what you can and cannot say, and you have to be very guarded and very careful. There's certain territory you just can't really creep into without somebody getting upset and calling heresy and igniting the bonfires to burn you at the stake, metaphorically. So for one,
Metaphorically, we should hope metaphorically.
Well, we should hope so, but I've been to some places, man. I've been to some churches. But, just for me personally, being able to have the conversations weekly that we are able to have that are just more expansive, where we can kick the props down and we can pull up the tent stakes, and enlarge the conversation, at least as far as I'm concerned, enlarge what it is that we can discuss and talk about. And I think some of the topics and some of the subjects we've been able to cover, I think they've just been incredible. And we're kind of quick on our feet. We shoot from the hip and we speak from the heart, and that's kind of our style. And the great thing about that is you just really never know what's going to happen. You never know where we're going to go. You never know where the conversation is going to go. We might start off talking about, New Thought metaphysics, and we might end up talking about aliens, or we might start off talking about ghosts, and we might end up in a time of peaceful prayer and meditation. You just don't know where the show is going to go. And that's what I love about it. And it's just been a real, my desire is just to take my own experiences, my own journey, some of which has been really painful, but has been so rewarding. And my desire is just to be able to take all of that and just be of service. And this is just another way of doing that. And it's just been so incredibly rewarding. It's been so rewarding. And
I'm so glad.
Yeah,
I really am. That gladdens my heart. I find that particularly, we all know that we live in a world full of obtuse, oblivious people. Sometimes I fall into that category. It depends on what I've got going up here. If it's too tough, if it's too complicated, if too much of their thought is required for any given subject, they just tune out. And that's fine. That's right. Absolutely their right to tune out and go watch Monday Night Football, or, it's fine.
Sure.
But it's escapism that also turns into some time wasted. That hour that we collectively spend together, not just the two of us, but our many viewers, I don't know about you, but after every show, I get several comments from people who are close enough that they've got my phone number,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll, get in touch and say, "Oh my God, that was exactly what I needed to hear that night." I appreciate that, because not only is that my intention to kind of tap into the ether and the cosmic consciousness, the unified field of oneness, and reach out to them really almost on an individual basis, even though it is a collective exercise, is, I think, the most rewarding thing for me, because what's the point of doing our work in the world if it never touches anybody, if it never reaches anybody, if it never has, an impact, an effect on these wonderful souls that are willing to, and I give them a lot of credit. I mean, it takes personal courage to want to change, to want to spiritually ascend, to want to learn, to want to evolve, to want to become more enlightened, and illuminated along their path, their sacred journey. That is huge.
Yes.
It is. And I know how huge it is because I've been on that path my whole life, and it has not been an easy one. It has not. It would be so much easier to just go collect a paycheck, come home, make dinner, put my feet up, play with the dog, go to sleep, do it all over again, become that, that ritualistic pattern of living that provides us with a routine and some semblance of security. And we human beings like to feel steady on our feet. Yes. And I think a lot of what knocked so many people back with COVID was all of a sudden, if you were still working, you were working from home, your life was shut down. You never went anywhere except the grocery store with 2 masks on your face, getting through that process as fast as you could to get home to your family and try to protect them. And not knowing if you were exposed to something while you were out there that is actually going to infect rather than protect your family. I mean, it was at its height of the pandemic, a truly scary thing, not knowing really much of anything about the virus itself, how it mutated, how it affected different individuals. And I said back then that it was, an extremely intelligent virus. And I still believe that. Any virus that can inhabit a host, show no symptoms at all, so that the host feels completely free to go and interact in the world all the time, that virus is infecting everyone that they come in contact with unknowingly. That's pretty smart. One of 3, I believe 3 viruses that live on in a human host after death. Wow. That's something to consider as well. We lost over 700 coroners, medical examiners, people that work with dead bodies to this pandemic in the early days when we did not realize just how dangerous it was. Wasn't that they didn't take precautions. They didn't take enough precautions. They thought a mask would suffice when they needed to be in a hazmat suit. It was a really, truly horrifying time. But it also had a profound effect on each one of us emotionally. I know it did with you. We've talked about this personally many times. For me, it was an excuse to stay home, come off the road, get a lot of writing done, get a lot of other work done, and just reflect on the state of the world and
Yeah.
everything else that was happening at that time, which has, of course, led to everything that is happening at this time.
Hmm.
Um, Jeff, I have to tell you, I have struggled, as you know, with bouts of hopelessness. And that was, there are a lot of ways that I would describe myself lifelong. I just turned 64 last week. Hopeless is never a word that would have surfaced, not ever a word. And yet I find that my whole mind frame was altered, my spirits uplifted when we were together in Houghton Lake, Michigan.
Hmm.
And then I went to Vulture City, Arizona, and something wonderful happened for me there that turned my light back on. I was back to being me.
Hmm.
And I don't know what it was. I'm grateful for it. Whatever it was, I'm grateful for it. But I find that even when my light dims a bit, it never goes out.
Hmm.
And that's an important lesson to learn. And it's something that we should talk about in Soul School too.
Yeah.
Because, if it's happening to me, I'm not the only one that it's happened to.
Hmm.
It's so much easier to lay around and eat ice cream, and which I did a lot of at the very beginning of the pandemic, because of its calcium content, of course. Had nothing to do with flavor.
You got to have calcium.
I know, one way or the other, and those chalky pills, just it's not the same. But it gave me an opportunity to really think about, where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we headed? Why haven't we learned our lessons? Why did a pandemic become fodder for more divisiveness in the country than we already had, as if we didn't have enough? Why? All of this. That's probably the word that I use the most in my own head. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And what are we going to do about it? Can we do anything about it? Or can we merely focus on healing ourselves and our own internal wounds? Nobody gets to be my age or your age without, being part of the walking wounded. I mean, if you've lived at all, you've had experiences of, profound grief and trauma and loss and intense sadness. But I found that the pandemic seemed to throw people over the precipice. A lot of people, not a few, a lot, millions of people. There was just sudden outbursts of violence, threatening. I told you the story about my neighbor who went walking her dog in the nearest neighborhood, and he lifted his leg on some stones that were around a mailbox out at the street. And the owner of the house came flying out of the house and screamed at her. This is someone who she had had multiple conversations with over the years, considered, a nice, cordial, neighborly relationship. Weren't friends, but, it might have gotten there if he had allowed it. And he just threatened her. And this was 20 minutes before we were forecast to have a downpour that would have very easily cleaned off those stones.
Right.
And her dog wasn't the only dog that walked through that neighborhood routinely. If he sniffed it and smelled something, then he just marked what had already been marked that the man never saw. and I talked to her about, she was crying. Her feelings were so hurt. She's a very, very sensitive woman. And, her big dog was sitting down on the terrace of my garden, and my little dog's looking at him like, I still don't trust you. He's big. He's a husky Malamute. And she was crying, and I handed her a tissue, and I said, honey, don't take on his issues. Those are his. And can you imagine how frightened, how frustrated, how desperate, how angry that man must be inside, that he has no control over his life, that he insists on controlling the one thing he can, and that's whether or not your dog pees on the stones around his mailbox.
Right.
That's all he had control of in that moment. And he chose the ugliest conceivable way to express that. Someone who you thought was, chatty and lovely and peaceful and neighborly, and all the times that you ever waved and, said hi.
Yeah.
And all of that was destroyed, dashed. She doesn't even go down that road anymore for fear of encountering him, because her feelings were so hurt. And it took me the longest time to convince her that he was just trying to control what he could of his environment, because everything else feels so out of control.
Yeah.
But the truth is, we don't have control over anything, not anything. Case in point, and this is kind of funny. When we were up at Sault Ste. Marie in August, something, and I'm not saying what, flew in suddenly right over the hotel where we were staying. And it just diffused orange light. I have the video. I can send it to Bill and see if he can put it up. It was really great. I'll do that while we chat. And, nothing like being spontaneous. Huh?
Yeah.
And so one man that was out in the group with me was like, oh, shit. Oh, my God. That must have been a comet. And I turned and I looked at him and I said, sir, if that was a comet, you'd be a ghost.
Yeah, right.
And he was like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Well, that's what we do. We might make little quips, or we might make extended commentary about this or that or the other thing, but it creates, the thoughts are things. It creates just like a scrambling of the synapses snapping, and it touches people's lives in a way that I guess I had only hoped to be able to do. I didn't know how a World Awakening or how Soul School would be embraced or accepted or rejected. I mean, it was a chance we took. And I feel like it's worked out pretty well so far. You know what I love the most, Jeff, about what you do? Hold on, let me find Bill.
Okay.
What I really love, I'm trying to walk and chew gum simultaneously. It's a good time to have a little cup of coffee.
Yeah,
okay, I found Bill, and now I will send him the awesome. It's awesome.
I'd like to see it too. I haven't seen this one, so
yeah,
I don't believe so anyways. No.
Yeah, it's sending. Off it goes. Bye-bye. Go. Oh, well, he'll get it eventually. It's only 15 seconds. Oh, it's gone. So Bill, just give me a notification in the private chat if you're able to load it, and we'll show it to our audience tonight. You're extremely intuitive. Your sensory, your sensory abilities, not mostly not your five senses, but your sixth sense, I find very often all of a sudden you'll get a message and you'll know that it's for someone, and you'll know that that someone is watching, or that they will watch the repeat, because we have, viewers all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you send out very clear, succinct messages that whoever it's for will know it's for them. So if any time during the show tonight you pick up on something, just feel free to interject it, because I consider it a gift that you have this gift. I think to a certain extent we all do. I know I do. It pops up every now and then when I'm with someone, and I just get that feeling that I've got something I need to tell them, and then I ask them if I can tell them, and if they say yes, then I do. So far I've never been off the mark so far. But I think that if we're always working toward the greater good, if we can in any way help to mitigate some of the mental suffering that people are enduring, and I hate to call it mental illness, because we all suffer some. I go into like meltdown if I have to do anything on the computer, like anything new. If I have to learn anything new on the computer, I start to feel like physically sick. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't need to. I don't. Okay, let me call Bill and see if he can go into the computer and be me, which he does with some app or something that he has. So that I can tell him I need this done, I need that done, I need this moved, I need that, I need this deleted, and he'll just come in and clean out my whole computer and get everything, up and running. And all I have to do is just sit here and watch what he's doing and marvel at his IT prowess. I don't have it. It makes me sick to think about having to get on the computer and find my way through anything. I do it how I've published 5, almost 6 books now over a computer is only because I mastered Word. And I know how to take that file and send it to a publisher. Oh, whoop-de-doo. Right. I mean, that's
Save.
it. Yeah. Save, send, save, send again. That's it. Yeah. I mean, we're talking like 5-year-olds. Babies are born knowing how to do this now. I swear to God they are.
Yeah, now it's just there. Yeah.
It's just there. Yeah. It's kind of like downloaded into our DNA, and we pass it on to the next generation. And, we've got 5-year-olds telling 30-year-olds how to use their smartphones.
Oh, yeah.
It's an amazing thing, this brain that we have. But let me ask you this. Yes. When you have those moments and when they're coming, because your face changes. I know you so well now. I can see your expression change, and it's almost like for just a moment or two, you go elsewhere, and then there it is, and you impart it, and we inevitably get a response from someone who is watching the show that says, that message was for me. I know it was for me. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it and how much it has helped me. That's what's gratifying about doing Soul School and about doing A World Awakening.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes we can be jolted awake, but sometimes we can be gently awakened. Yeah. Where it's not so shocking. It's just a natural process, just like being a child in bed when your mother comes and kisses you on the forehead and says, good morning, honey, it's time to get up for school. Yeah. Yep. No.
It's funny you should say that, because I literally am had the conversation with my son today, who's been he's 16, and been having a difficult time getting him up he just started at a new school. We switched him a couple of months in, And so I have to take him at a different time than I take or than the others go. But he waits till the last second to get out of bed. And I'm like, and then when I pick him up, he's like, I'm so tired. I'm like, dude, that's because you do not know the art of waking up slowly and gracefully. You set your alarm about 45 minutes before you want to get up. You make it a slow process. You can wake up. You can even go back to bed for 15 minutes once you're up. And then you just know, you're conscious of the fact that, okay, the day has begun. I need to get up. I'm going to lay back down for 15 minutes, set a timer for 15 minutes. Then when that one goes off, you're a little bit more, okay, then get up, put on your clothes. You can come sit on the couch, and you can even rest on the couch until it's time to leave the house. But it's a way more, it's a way better way to wake up than to just have your alarm go off right at the moment that you need to be going out the door. And I think that is a lot of what we're doing with Soul School, what you're doing with the World Awakening, is you can wake the world up. You can wake a person up with a bullhorn, and sometimes that needs to be done. Sometimes someone just needs that, pattern interruption that just snaps them out of whatever reality they're living in into the reality that is. But then there are souls that need the more gentler approach, that just need to be. They need to know that they're seen. They need to know that that they're known, that their experiences are valid. They need to, just slowly wooed, as opposed to just like someone attempting to, bust in their room with a rose in their mouth and ravish them. Sometimes someone just needs to be wooed slowly. And I kind of feel like that's what we are trying to do, is in a time when awakening is so incredibly necessary. And the fact that your show started on 11/11, is that when you said it started? Or that
11/11/2020. Yeah.
So I don't even know. We talk so much, and everything we usually talk about is so arcane and esoteric. Sometimes I forget what we talked about when we didn't talk about. But 11/11 has been, that number specifically changed my life way back early on when I was still in ministry. And it was connected to the verse John 11:11, where Jesus said about Lazarus, my friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go that he may wake up. So that word has always been connected to awakening in my mind. So that's just interesting that a world awakening begins on 11/11. And I think even in every context I've heard that number be significant, it's always connected to awakening somehow. And it's just interesting because at the time I had no context for it. All I knew is I was being haunted by the number, and I didn't know what it meant until I stumbled on that passage and it hit me like a bolt of lightning. So That's cool. But no, I think that what we are trying to do right now, at least this is my heart, and it's always been my heart, is to help with the slow awakening, so people don't need the bullhorn in the face. Sometimes if it's needed, okay, I'll be the bearer of the bullhorn and I'll do what I have to do if I have to do it. But I don't want to be that guy. And I don't want people to have to need that. I would rather slowly come alongside of the seeker and the sojourner and say, hey, let's just walk together and let's figure this out. You don't have to have it figured out all right now. You can bring all your questions, all of your doubts, all your beliefs, all your unbeliefs. Let's just walk together. And for me, that's how I prefer to wake up. That's how I prefer to wake up in the morning. I start waking up an hour before I have to get out of bed.
Yeah.
That way the process is slower and more enjoyable. And when it's time to get up, I am up. And I'm not going back to bed once I'm up. And I think there are the shock jock types who just hit you in the face, and they're necessary and they're needed. But I feel like what we're trying to do is just come alongside of those who maybe they're struggling to wake up. Maybe they're in the middle of a nightmare. Maybe they're stuck in between and having some, and we're just kind of gently trying to help people wake up, and people from all creeds, all backgrounds, all religious backgrounds. And I don't know, it's really an honor to be a part of it with you. And we're in some ways, such an odd duo. Not really an odd duo. I mean, we might be odd, I suppose. We probably are odd on our own. But I mean, as a duo,
we're weird squared is what we are.
Yeah, I mean, we're weird to begin with. You put us together, and it's like, I mean, it's just our backgrounds are so very different. What we were doing is so very different. and the concrescence of, you know, us, it's just been so amazing to me to see how well we flow together, and even what an amazing, not to use the same word again, but concrescence there is between even our own audiences, that we can, you know, my main audience is more from a religious background, people who are religious but who have gone through what we colloquially now call deconstruction, where they've started off maybe more fundamentalist and maybe lost some of that fundamentalism and are now more, they went from a solid state to now they're back to like a liquid state, and they're looking for a mold to settle into and don't quite know where to go or what to do. And your audience is coming more from the paranormal community and other places as well. But how those two things have merged together, it's not something I ever thought could happen. Right? I mean, those two things just don't go together in the world I come from. And yet here we are bringing them together, and it seems to be working quite well.
Yes, it does. And I think it's interesting that you decided to leave the church not long before I decided to become a minister. And it was because of the calling that I felt to renew my commitment. Years and years ago, I was a grief counselor on a campus, and we had about 300 boys, some of whom suffered tremendous losses while they were residents there, and things happened in the outside world, either to members of their families or friends that they lost, and they chose me. Of all the other people that worked at that school, they chose me to do the training, the psychological, therapeutic, clinical training, to be a grief counselor. And I had really hardly even begun that process when they said, "You've got this. You don't need to you don't need to go to school to learn this. You come by this naturally." And what I realized is that there is no consoling inconsolable grief. What you can do is listen. What you can do is hold someone's hand. Let them cry and make sure that they don't feel uncomfortable doing so in your presence.
Yeah.
I give them space to express their full spectrum of emotions, because there are 7 stages of grief, at least. And one of them is anger. I remember being with a little boy who was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing, and then suddenly he just stood up and he picked up the chair he was sitting in, and with like Superman power threw it. This kid was like 3.5 feet tall. Picked up that chair and threw it across a very large room to the opposite wall. That's how much anger and fierce rage there was in him at that moment, and splintered the chair. It was in pieces, and staff came running. They heard a very loud noise. And of course they were concerned that I was okay. But he didn't receive any consequences for that. That was an expression that he had to get out of himself.
Yeah.
The chair is easily replaced, but he was not easily replaced. And it was the help and the healing that I think that he received right there with us that got him through the most difficult time in his life. And he's still a friend of mine on Facebook 20 years later, and refers to me always as his best friend, his best friend in the world. He said that I saved him.
Wow.
When you can make just that difference in one life, it's been a life well lived.
Yes.
And yet you and I reach countless souls every week, more than we even know about. This platform goes all over the world. It has many, many different I don't know the word for it, but forums or, you know, venues, you know, whatever. I don't know.
Hmm.
A techno idiot. I'm sure there's a proper word for it. I just don't know what it is. But it is very satisfying, emotionally, spiritually satisfying for me, and I know for you,
Yeah.
to be able to help be the guide, help, you know, just be the messenger.
Hmm.
That's really all we are. Neither one of us are looking for fame.
Hmm.
That means nothing to me. Absolutely nothing to me.
Yeah.
It's like worshiping a false idol. It's
Hmm.
not what it's supposed to be about,
Yeah.
regardless of what the rest of society thinks and you know who they put up on pedestals. I'm not interested in that. I'm
Yeah.
interested in touching human hearts and opening human minds.
Mm.
That's all I'm interested in.
Mm.
And I know you feel the same way. So
Yeah.
that's part of our simpatico. You know, we're two people on the same mission,
Hmm.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree wholeheartedly. And, I was for those of you who don't know me, I think probably a lot of people do by now, but I was a pastor for 12 years. That was what I spent my life doing. That was my career. Actually, today was 8 years since I left that role, that like actual pastoral role. It was 8 years today, which I just can't believe it's been that long. It literally, when I saw that today in my Facebook memories, which was just like a thank you I put out there to everyone who came to our final farewell service, I was like, 8 years ago, what the hell? I remember seeing it last year when it was 7 years and being like, what the, and now it's 8. But I've been in ministry since then. I've traveled. In fact, I probably preached and taught more in the last 8 years than I did in 12 years as a pastor, because I've traveled all over the place doing conferences. In fact, prior to COVID, I was gone probably every weekend at a church or a conference or an event like that. And as you said, prior to everything you just said there, that right about the time that I sort of ceased ministering in churches a lot more is when you became a minister. And I'm still a minister. I still have my credentials. I can still marry and bury and all that good stuff. But COVID like shoved a spike in the spoke of the bicycle of my career, my
Mine
itinerary.
too.
Yeah. And really kind of took a little tumble over the handlebars there and found myself with a whole lot of extra time on my hands. And I think a lot of people did. And one of the great things that extra time did, amidst the absolute horror and chaos that was and is COVID, the great thing, though, about the stillness that came, and I still work a day job. I work a full-time day job that's quite demanding. But for about a year, I was able to do that mostly from home, which was, oh, so wonderful. It was so wonderful.
Yeah.
That part of it alone was just amazing. And you found like, you really kind of found out, nobody listened to this who has any say in my employment, but you found out just how much air there is in the bag of chips, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like just as far as like what you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis, I'm like, I can probably do all this in 3 hours from home. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
there was just a lot of extra time. And most of that time, when it started, I was like, I'm going to use this to I'm going to write 2 books by the time this is all over. I'm going to do all this different stuff. Well, I started 2 books, but I didn't get them done because really I realized how exhausted I was. I realized how tired I was. And sometimes you don't realize how tired you are until you sit down. You know, you don't realize just how tired you are until your head hits the pillow. And if you can keep yourself moving and moving and moving, then you live under the illusion that you're awake, but you're exhausted. And that kind of pause button that was hit with COVID really showed me how exhausted I was, how tired I was, not just physically from working all week and then flying somewhere on Friday and coming back late Sunday night only to get up Monday and go back to fly out Friday, you know, that whole cycle. Not only from that, which that alone is quite exhausting, but mentally, spiritually, soulishly, in every realm, I was just exhausted. And, the nature of what I do, the nature of what you do, Specifically, the way that I ministered in churches for the last like 7 or 8 years was more about helping people question their answers than it was about answering their questions. It was more about helping people to try to see through so-called orthodoxy and ask the questions that you're not allowed to ask. That's really, in terms of ministry in churches, that's really my aim. I tell people all the time that a God too big to question is a God too small to worship. So let's ask questions. And that's really what I aim to do. So I say I poke holes in the holy and I tug at theological threads. And that's kind of, I don't mean to be, I'm not like a provocateur or anything. That's not really my aim, but I just want to help people think. I want to help people think, because when I was, no one ever really taught me how to think. People taught me what to think, right?
Yes.
They taught me what to think, what to believe, but no one ever really taught me the mechanics of how to think and how to land in a place of belief. But even then, hold your beliefs lightly so that you can constantly be in a state of evolution. I never even thought there was a possibility. It was orthodoxy. There are these fundamental truths. The denomination that I belong to had 16 fundamental truths that were based on a council that was convened in 1913, where this new denomination was born. And it's like 30, 40 plus thousand denominations who all have that same, shtick of, this is what you got to believe. 40,000 denominations, all with this thing. It's just insane. It's just insane. And then you got the Catholics who, we've got the apostolic succession. The Orthodox, no, we've got the apostolic succession. And it's like, we're all just screwed up and don't really know what's going on. But we've just been taught what to believe, what to think, as opposed to how to think, how to arrive at beliefs in a healthy way. And so that was what I was aiming to do. And I did it. And my books, my 2 books were all aimed at doing exactly that, especially my last book, which was called The Atheistic Theist, Why There Is No God and You Should Follow Him, which was all about my kind of deconversion and then kind of my reconversion into what I call an atheistic theist, where I'm an unbelieving believer. I don't believe the way I used to believe, but I do believe something. But what I do believe is informed by what I don't believe, and it's a mess, but that's who I am, and that's where I'm at. And I was kind of trying to introduce people to that new path of not holding your beliefs so tightly, but also not just jettisoning belief entirely. The thing about doing that is it's exhausting after a while, because when you come up against orthodoxy comes back at you hard, And I don't mean necessarily orthodoxy with a big O, like Eastern Orthodoxy, but just orthodoxies that people have built up in their minds. And I've been pummeled from all sides by people for years for my stance on hell. You go into traditional churches and you even suggest that the eternal fate of the unbeliever is anything other than eternal conscious torment, and you've automatically earned yourself a spot in exactly that.
Yeah, here's your demerit. Yep.
Yeah, right. No 3 strikes, you're out. You're out.
Yep.
So I've had the crap kicked out of me by religion and religious leaders, and I'm a forgiving person. I don't hold it against people because I've been there myself. I've done it myself. I know exactly why people do what they do. I know the motivation. I understand it. I have compassion for it because I've been there. And God knows in some ways I'm probably still there, and I just don't see it yet in certain areas. So I'm not bothered by that, but it does take a toll on you emotionally. And if it takes a toll on you emotionally, it takes a toll on you physically. And if it takes a toll on you physically and emotionally, it takes a toll on you relationally and in all these other ways. And I just realized when the pause button that was early COVID quarantine, all that was hit, and I finally sat down, I was like, oh my God, I'm exhausted, And I'll never forget the day. I had stumbled upon a podcast where they were interviewing a guy named Mitch Horowitz, whom I've since had on my own podcast. And he's a great guy. He's actually a scholar on Western occultism, of all things, but it's very, very interesting. A very interesting conversation to have. And I was just listening to him because it was just entertaining, the things he was talking about. He was talking about new thought, science of mind, all that kind of stuff, which I find fascinating. And somewhere in the course of his talk, he just, and I don't even remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of, what if in this moment, you had to be completely honest with yourself about what you wanted. And if you, I can't even remember how he said it, but it was just like, I'd never really I don't know why. It's such a simple thought. It doesn't even sound that profound at all. But I was just in an emotional state where it was like, I don't know. If in this moment I really just let go of everything and was like, what do I really want and what don't I want? I don't know. And in that moment, the words just came out of my mouth. I don't want to be a pastor anymore. And those words just like came out of my mouth. I was actually in the shower listening to a podcast and I'm in there by myself and the words just come out of my mouth. I don't want to be a pastor anymore. And then I'm like, whoa. And then I said it again and I was like, I don't want to be a pastor anymore. And I said it again and I was like, it was just like this the floodgates opened. And the thing about me is like, since I left the pastorate, I had always held on to it as kind of like a backup plan because I know I'm called to service. And I know, I don't want to in any way sound disparaging towards just a normal career that doesn't involve that.
Yeah, but you are rendering a service just by saying what you're saying right now.
Yeah. No, I believe that. But like I've always known, like even just the kind of 9-to-5 thing, it's probably not where I'll be for the rest of my life. It's something I do to keep the lights on and the lunch is packed now, but I know it's not where I'll land. But there's frustrations involved in getting from here to there, of course. And you're like, man, I wish I could just hit the fast forward button and go and quantum leap over here. And, so I always held on to the pastorate thing in the back of my mind. Like, I could always go back to it. I don't actually know that I could, but it was just this thing in my mind because it was a career and it was something that I know how to do, that I'm trained to do. And it was just there. But in that moment, I let go of it. And I actually let go of it. And I felt the release when I let go of it.
And interesting that you were in the shower being cleansed while that was happening.
Yeah, and how much of that had to do, even subconsciously, how much, I don't know. But there was a release. I felt it like leave me in a way. And we don't realize when we're holding on so tight, we don't realize how much energy we're expending just by holding on.
Yes.
And when we release, instantly, all that energy we're expending, holding on, it comes rushing back to us because we're not holding on anymore. It's like you're holding your breath because you're afraid if you let go of it, you won't find the next one. Meanwhile, you're about to pass out and your face is turning blue. And what was once life-giving has turned to poison in your lungs, but you don't think you can let it go because you don't trust that you'll find the next one. The moment you let it go, instantly, it's just a natural reaction. It comes rushing back to you. And all the energy you were wasting holding on when you let go is repurposed into drawing in that next breath. And it was like when I let go of that in that moment, all the energy that I was expending, holding on, it came back to me. And man, I felt so alive. And I ran up, I put a towel on, of course, but I ran upstairs to my wife and I was like, hey, Diana, I don't want to be a pastor anymore. I mean, if I had forgotten the towel and had run up, it would have been a hilarious picture. But if I'm just running up like a madman screaming, I don't want to be a pastor anymore. And she was very happy about it because she's always known that wasn't what I was supposed to go back to, and has always known that the more I held on to it, the more it would kind of caused me to suffer internally.
Yeah, it was repressive of your nature.
Exactly.
When you have to edit everything that you say before it comes out.
Yeah.
That is no way to live.
No way to live. Absolutely not.
For anybody, regardless of their vocation.
Oh, for sure. But it's just amazing when I let that go, there are principles there are universal laws that are at work. And one of those laws, I think, is that law of letting go, that there are things that can't come to you until you let go of the last thing that you gripped onto, that you're now afraid to release. It's a law. And I don't know if someone's given that law a name, but that law of release, it's a real thing. And there was so much that had kind of, I felt so stuck prior to that season. And I was still doing, other people would have given their left arm to have been doing some of the stuff that I was doing, and to be sitting on the platforms with some of the theologians and preachers I was sitting on platforms with. But it was just starting, it just wasn't, I wasn't there anymore. You know what I mean? I wasn't there anymore. But when I released that, it was like instantly all this other stuff came to me. And that's even right after we struck up a relationship and a friendship. All of this stuff just started coming once I released that. And it's just amazing how that works. It's a universal law. You hold on to a breath and you suffocate yourself. You let go of that breath and the next one finds you. It just happens. Even the name Yahweh, the tetragrammaton, right?
Yeah.
Some rabbis even say that name is meant to mimic the sound of breathing, of inhalation and exhalation. So the very core of reality itself is that even the very name of God is release, receive, release, receive, let go, receive. That's like the deepest principle. And, I saw that at work in my life when that happened. And I don't even know why I started talking about all that. Oh, it was because you said right at the time that I kind of released that was when you took it upon yourself in a way, interestingly enough. But for me too, interesting enough, even in letting go of it, a whole new, my calling rendered itself out larger into a whole new world and reality that I never even thought I'd ever be a part of. So it's just amazing. and so, yeah, in that way, there's kind of like a bleeding together of our two worlds in a way,
Yeah. And I've spoken probably ad nauseum about the delusions of grandeur that so many people begin to suffer once they, I've always used the metaphor that life is a river and it has its own current, its own speed.
Yeah.
It's almost like its own consciousness. And as soon as we get big and strong enough to swim, we plunge in and then start swimming against the current.
Yeah.
Because we're so certain that what we want is up around the bend and we can't see it, but we know it's up there.
Yeah.
We just know it's up there.
Yeah.
And very often exhaust ourselves trying to get to a made up reality with in some kind of an alternate state that has bears no relevance to the day-to-day life that we're living, but we're just exhausting ourselves to whether pad our bank accounts, drive a better car, buy a bigger house, to manifest the material things in life that are completely inconsequential to whether or not we live a happy life. I believe it was Emerson said, paraphrasing, if you help one child, then you've lived a good life. If you've helped one child to get past whatever they're facing and make it to adulthood, good job done. So I feel like my accomplishments in that realm, working with children for so many years, like I kind of checked that off. Like, even though my sisters are the ones that actually decided they felt the need to breed and, burgeon the family, I had hundreds of kids.
Yeah.
I didn't have to birth one of them, but I loved them all as though I did. And I taught them that when it's too hard, when it's too tough, when your muscles are on fire and your lungs feel like they're about to explode, flip over and float and let the current carry you because it knows the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that message, I've spread exponentially everywhere that I've gone, with every group that I have spoken to, almost to give them permission to release. When I opened people's third eyes, which was a gift from the Galactic family, this was not something that, it was not a preconceived notion. Oh, I'm going to try this or do this and see if this works. It was just, boom, there it was with one person.
Yeah.
And I had to hold her still because she was like, whoa, what just happened? And when we were done and I looked in her eyes had changed color. They were brighter. She had a smile on her face. She said, "Oh, I haven't felt this free, and I don't know when." And I said, "Well, all that's happening now is that you're looking at your old reality with new eyes. That's all that has happened.
Yeah.
You've opened that part of your consciousness in a beautiful way." I've done thousands of people since then. Thousands. It takes 2 to 3 minutes. It's no big deal in terms of my investment of energy, but it is a gift that was given to me that I pass on to others. And the message is, the last thing that I do is that I embrace them. I bring them close up to me and I whisper in their ears, "Give me your pain. I won't hold on to it. It won't be absorbed into me. It will be gone just that fast. Give it to me as though you are giving me a gift. Give it to me." And that's when usually the waterworks start. And I have over the years found it shocking how much pain and suffering in silence goes on in the human condition. Because nobody wants to be perceived as weak.
Yep.
As though, our human frailties are a bad thing. It's part of what makes us human. I cry every day over something or other. Absolutely every day, at least once a day. I cry, just burst into tears over something that I thought about or that I saw, or, it's almost like this cleansing that I have to do every day, every day, every day. And when they're weeping in my arms and telling me that they feel free for the first time in their life, or they tell me something that happened to them as a child, usually paranormal, that they never ever shared with anyone ever. Not their parents or siblings, grew up, got married, got a spouse, had kids, never shared it with anyone, but they told me because they knew that I would believe them and that I would comfort them and that what they told me would never go any farther than me, not ever. And to be able to serve that purpose, essentially the minister's license I have is just a piece of paper. I've been a minister for many decades of my life, doing the same thing, the same way, and bringing comfort to those that I encounter. And I know that you have as well. I know that you have.
Well, when you said what you're saying about how, when you're opening someone's third eye, like the way you kind of conclude that is by embracing them and giving them permission in that moment to release the pain that they've held onto, that to let go of painful memories, painful feelings, painful thoughts that they've held onto, that they've never had. They've never experienced someone telling them, "Hey, I can handle it. Just let it go," because it's either they don't want to put it on somebody else because they know what it caused them. So they feel like it's their responsibility to hold on to this so no one ever suffers from this again. Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because back when I was a pastor, and even going back into my more hardcore fundamentalist days, which the first few years of it were, of course, if you've ever been to a Protestant Pentecostal church service.
No, I'm happy to say I have not. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Andrea, before all this is done, I'm going to take you to one. No, I'm just kidding. And it's a weird little slice of Americana, to be sure. But, these services typically conclude with an altar call, which means the preacher spends the 45 minutes to an hour or however long it is he ends up preaching with the entire aim of basically convincing the listener that they're a sinner so that he can give the altar call, which means you walk forward to the steps at the front of the church And that's what they now call the altar. Thankfully, nothing is ever slaughtered upon it except
Thankfully.
for dreams and hopes of futures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Okay.
so they come to the altar and then they pray the sinner's prayer, which is basically, Lord Jesus, I'm a sinner, forgive me, repeat after me kind of thing. And at the end, they're like, you're forgiven. And it's like, you just spent a goddamn hour and a half bashing these people over the head, telling them the scum of the earth, the worst of the worst. And I can say this with as much passion as I'm saying it with, because I did that myself in my younger years. And then you're going to bring them up to the altar after all the guilt you have heaped upon them and even dredged up from their past and all the stuff they already feel guilty about. And then you're going to bring them up to the altar, lead them in this quick little prayer, and just be like, it's good. Like they don't feel it. That doesn't really do it for them. And so I started this early on because I still believed that way early on, but I also had this belief that, hey, if you ask, God forgives, and that's all there is to it. So I had that belief. So I would go and whisper in people's ears that looked extremely distressed, hey, your sins are forgiven. And when I would say those words to people, they'd lose their minds. Like, I mean, grown men would collapse. Grown men in suits, successful business people, when I would say those words, they would collapse onto the ground, bawling. I remember one guy grabbing my collar and being like, are you sure? You know? And just being like, I mean, those kind of things shake you. Because when you're the guy on the other side of the microphone, kind of working the magic, you know, and your job is just to get people to the altar, to do your duty. I don't know. You forget how much this is actually really affecting people emotionally, right? Until you see things like that and you're like, good God, these people are desperate to feel forgiven, which is desperate to let go of the stuff they've been holding on to, right? And so as I grew and I matured theologically and my beliefs changed about things, well, at that point, I started to realize nobody needs to be forgiven. You are forgiven, period. And so then that just became my message to those who already felt weighed down by sin. I realized I don't need to tell anybody they're screwed up. Everybody kind of already knows that. I don't need to tell anybody they've made a mistake. Everybody knows that. So my message then just simply became, you are forgiven, period. And then that message, I mean, alone, that had the power without ever having to convince anyone that they'd done anything wrong. And then my message kept growing to the point where it was like, forgiveness isn't even an issue. You don't need to be forgiven because you've never done anything wrong. Or it's not that you've never done anything wrong. Of course, we've done wrong to each other, but you've not sinned against some cosmic judge out there whose brow is eternally furrowed and who's, you know, eternally frowning at you like this. You haven't sinned against God. There is no such God who you need forgiveness from. And just bringing that reality to people, but it's all the same principle, though. It's the principle of giving people permission to let go of the pain that they're holding on to. And when people let go, everything, all the energy that's been expended in holding on returns to them. And as you said, when you open the third eye during that whole experience, all of those giftings that are probably latent in some way, that we probably all have in some way, when someone just gives you permission to let go, you don't realize how much energy you've been expending holding on. And when you let go, it all comes back. And now everything you've been wasting holding on to something you didn't need to be held on to is repurposed. And your spiritual vision is open and you can see and you can feel and you can hear, you can taste and you can touch and you can smell. And that's, geez, I mean, just to be able to live my life doing that for people.
Yes, just
enough.
that. Just that.
Even having had done it for one or two is enough, because God knows most people never encounter a form of spirituality where someone just tells them, you're okay. You can let it go. You don't have to live another day in guilt or fear. You don't have to jump through all these hoops to get there. You don't have to pray this magical prayer in order for it to be that way. And it doesn't have to be prayed in anyone's name in order for it to really work and be efficacious. You can just simply let go.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. I was the last time I was I think I was on my way to Arizona, and this woman walked past me with a very colorful piece of luggage, and on the top of it was a flap that was connected to the handle, about that big, and it said emotional baggage. And I just started laughing my ass off. I'm like, I stopped her. I said, could I please take a picture of that and post it? And she's like, oh, yeah, sure. My husband gave it to me. You know, it just cracked me up. And I tell people all the time, I don't care if your baggage is Louis Vuitton. Put it down on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And keep on walking. And you will be amazed at how light you feel. You will suddenly comprehend the incredible lightness of your being.
Yeah.
And I think that's why when I do what I do, that it people get dizzy. They feel a little bit like their equilibrium is off. They say they feel like this, huge weight has been lifted. Yeah. Because they've never, ever been given permission to let it go.
Yeah.
They thought that part of being mature, part of being a grown-up was carrying all this baggage. And, sure shit, whenever you see somebody that is carrying a lot of baggage, look around them. Everybody else they know are offloading their baggage on them because they figure if they're strong enough to carry their own, they can carry mine too. And so they get dumped on a lot. And these are often the most sensitive souls that don't know how to say no. That love so powerfully that they will take on other people's stuff, but then they don't know what to do with it. I mean, how much can you compartmentalize pain?
Yeah.
First you've got all of your own to deal with, and now everybody that loves you and that you love sees you as an easy mark for offloading what they can't handle.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're weighed down to the point where it feels like, there's the moon is laying on your chest.
Yeah.
And you're collapsing into yourself.
Yeah.
So to be able to liberate people from that is, I think, one of the most important functions of any minister, any pastor, anybody, any person. You don't need a piece of paper, or any kind of document to minister to others.
Yeah, and isn't it how little it takes?
And how little it takes. And I know I wore my Spread the Love sweatshirt. Spread the love sweat. Yeah. Well, also because it's freezing, I'm dying down here. I think we went down to like 54 degrees last night. I had to put my robe on. I had to put my slippers on.
We're in the 30s here, so I busted out the cardigans. So
I don't know what that feels like anymore, nor will I ever again.
And you know what? Good for you.
I know. Yes, I have felt as cold as 20 below zero, and it was so painful, physically painful, that I said, I'm not playing north of the Mason-Dixon line ever again during the fall and winter and early spring. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I have broken that rule a couple of times out of sheer necessity, but for the most part, warm is good.
I agree with that 100%. Yep.
Yes, warm is good. Yeah. Although I'm a little hot right now because, I'm excited about what we're talking about here. We'll just get a little fan going here.
Okay. No, I wanted to say just real quick, about the little that it takes to really change someone's life, as far as like encouragement goes. There's a great story in the Gospels of where Jesus, there's an individual named Nathaniel who hears of Jesus, and he says of Jesus, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Concerning Jesus. So basically, he's not really believing the reports he's hearing about Jesus, and he's not believing the reports about Jesus because, in some ways, a kind of xenophobic reason. Can anything good come out of this particular region? Hell no, this can't be the guy. And then Jesus approaches him, and Jesus says to him, I see a true Israelite in whom there is no deceit. And, he's like, you're the Christ. you're the Son of the living God. And Jesus is like, Nathaniel, I saw you when you were sitting under the fig tree. I'm sorry, that's what he says first. He says, I saw you when you were sitting under the fig tree. And then Nathaniel says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus goes, basically, that's all it took. He's like, I'm telling you, you'll see the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. But I just told you that's all it took to open you up to this reality. It was like Jesus himself was blown away by how little it took to shift someone from being like, this can't be the guy, nothing good can come out of Nazareth, to being like, you're the guy. And all it took was Jesus saying, I see you. I saw you in that moment. I see you. I can, being seen, being known, that is enough to shift someone from here to there. And even Paul in the gospel, or in the epistle to the Galatians, says, now that you've come to know God, he says this to the audience, or he writes this to the audience, now that you've come to know God, and then he makes a dead stop and he says, or rather have come to be known by God. And it's a purposeful switch, because he's basically stroking their religious egos at first by saying to them, hey, you guys have followed all the rules, you've done all the right stuff, and so you've come to know God. And they're like, we have, haven't we? And then he stops and he's like, actually, no, that's not how it works. You're known by God. It's not about what you do or what you don't do. It's about the fact that the divine knows you. And any good news, anything worthy of the title of gospel, I don't care what book or what direction it comes to us from, that's the message. You're seen and you're known and you're beloved in exactly the way you're seen and known in this moment. And that is enough to shift someone from here to there. It really is. And it really takes so very little. And we were talking on Monday even about kind of the epiphanic moment, a moment of epiphany where someone has some kind of divine encounter or some kind of brush with the numinous or the ineffable, and it takes them from this place to that place like that. Well, part of that is when you experience something like that, I mean, you're walking around with all this guilt, all this shame, all this emotional baggage, and you feel like you're the last person in the world who should ever be in the presence of whatever that is. And when you find yourself undeniably in the presence of whatever that is, you're like, well, apparently I'm worthy because I'm here. In some way, apparently I'm worthy. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, and I'm seen and I'm known and I'm here. And I mean, that's part of how it can shift you from here to there, is that if I'm here, I must be okay, and that so goes against the religious programming I grew up with. That was that you had to make yourself just so righteous and holy for God to ever even consider glancing at you from across the room. I mean, it was like, I know I'm a little bit crazy in the way that I approached it, but really all I did was take seriously what I was handed and told was truth. It's just that a lot of other people don't do it, and so a lot of other people never find out that it doesn't work because they don't actually put into practice what they claim to believe. I was just a handful of guys who were crazy enough to try it, and I was fasting every other day of my life. I prayed 8 to 12 hours a day. I wore grooves in the carpet in my parents' basement when I was like 16 to 18 years old, pacing back and forth, praying, crying out to God, make me holy, make me righteous. I want to serve you, all that, and that's what was ingrained in me, that this is how you get God's attention. And it seemed like a goddamn cat, the more attention you pay to it, the less it wants to be around you. That's what God seemed like, the proverbial cat that you're always trying to pick up and love, but it just wants to hang out under the bed all day. It's like, that's kind of who God was. I'm like, hey, I'm here. Do you see me? I prayed 8 to 12 hours today. I fasted yesterday. I'm all gussied up and ready for you. And he's just playing hard to get up there.
Yeah, and it's for me, that is relegated to barter system.
Yeah.
Mindset. If I do this for you, will you do this for me?
Yep. It's an economy of exchange based religious ideology. And so, but that's what I grew up having ingrained in me. And so when someone finally, and it didn't, or when I finally just saw myself as accepted exactly as I was, with all my jacked upness, which is also not a word, but Andrea, if you give it your approval, we'll
with my stamp of approval. Yes.
It's part of the English language now.
It's part of the vernacular now. Yes, it is.
But, with all of that, when I just finally saw that, I mean, I'm telling you, the amount of energy that I was expending on trying to make myself righteous and holy and acceptable and all of this stuff, once I was able to just let go, oh my God, the breath that came back to me in my life, all that time when I was trying so hard, all the stuff I was after, none of it was happening. All the kind of supernatural stuff I was hoping would result from that, none of it happened. I never saw a thing, really. I mean, really, none of it. And the moment I just learned to rest and be still and know that I am God, all that kind of stuff.
You just read my mind. You literally just read my mind. That was the next thing I was going to say.
Yeah. Well, hey, say it then. I want to hear what you got to say. But yeah.
Well, it's almost ludicrous that I function as a minister, as a pastor, when I don't believe in religion. I think that it is archaic, obsolete, a form of crowd control, a business, just and in some ways, a grift filled with grifters who know how to pass the collection plate once they've stirred up the fervor and gotten everybody inspired. To empty their pockets.
Yeah.
And I find that abhorrent. Everything that I do, I sell my books because I have to. They're too expensive not to sell them. For what they call it cost me. But if I was financially in a position to just give everything away, I would. But the experiences that I have had, that I have shared with others, the gifts, the messages, the sightings, the introduction that I do is came to me as a gift and is imparted as such.
Yeah.
But I have always, for as far back as I can remember, felt a oneness that I longed to share with others because of that sense of peace that it brings me. And it does come back to be still and know that I am God.
Yes.
Those words are for us. Those words are the inner sanctum, that place in us that is quiet and peaceful, and where all the answers reside, and all the answers are one answer. To me, the only answer, love is the answer to every single question. Love is the answer to every single question.
Yep.
It is the common denominator, what we are born of. It is it's the glue that holds the molecular structure of the universe together. And I truly, in my heart, the only belief system that I have is that we are divine. All of us are divine, that we are part of the whole.
Yes.
And that we all come from the same source energy. And we are the way, through our own eyes, through our own senses, through our own being, that we are the way that the Creator witnesses its creation.
Yeah.
When you look into Diana's eyes, you have a visceral reaction. You have an emotional reaction.
Oh, yes, I do.
Staring into the eyes of the woman that you have devoted your life to, that you have brought children into the world with, who you adore. And so when I'm teaching people to look at the skies, I tell them that this is so easy. All you need to do is look into the sky in the same way that you stare into the eyes of your most beloved, the one you love.
Yeah.
And just look at the sky the same way. and look at it all as one thing. Now, your human eye will, if there's an anomaly, if there's an arc of light, or if there's some movement, or whatever, your human eye will focus in on that automatically, and that's just a physiological reaction, just the same as your reflex. How your knee kicks up when it gets banged. So what I suggest to them is that try to tap into nothing from the neck up. Don't even think about what you're doing. Don't even think about it. Just feel it. Feel it, because that is our superpower. That is what we do best. And people who, have a cognitive disconnect with that, where it doesn't translate, it doesn't relate, that, become very angry and very repressed and very reclusive, and sometimes act out violently. That's all described, that's all taken and thrown into the category of mental illness or instability. But it's a part of us that can be healed if addressed. Right. Now, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and we did talk about this once before, I believe, on Soul School, is that I have a very good friend who is an atheist, and she has seen me do what I do by taking, sometimes hundreds of people outside and giving them a formal introduction to the galactic family. It's not because I believe there is a galactic family. I know there is a galactic family. I've been a contactee for more than 50 years of my life, probably a lot longer than that, but I just didn't know what I was connecting with. Prior to that, I was just too young. But I've always known that I am in this world, but I am not of this world. I've always known that, which is why I have felt like such a misfit on the planet, and sometimes get very angry and just, want a ride home. Come get me, like a bad date, and you call home and say, Daddy, come get me. I'm at the corner of such and such. And oh my God, he's a dick. And oh my God, that. And I have those moments pretty frequently where I just see something that I find so abhorrent or is so dispiriting that I really don't belong here. I really don't. I just don't belong here. Some clerical error was made in the cosmos. I know I never agreed to come here. This was, if this was an assignment, if whatever this is, and it's all speculation. I don't know why I'm here, other than to spread a message of hope and love and reconciliation and liberation, freedom, justice to prevail on this planet. But I do know that I would like to be an escapee frequently. And fortunately, I'm able to do that from time to time, to actually get the hell out of here and go into 5D, where I'm very much more comfortable. 3D is incredibly depressing and oppressive and just way too black and white for me, and I require Technicolor. If you saw the new photographs that NASA released today from the Webb telescope, that kind of Technicolor. That's where I want to be, how I want to be. Yeah. And so what my struggle is finding the way to be 5D in 3D. To be 4D, 5D, and beyond while I'm in 3D. And I am making some progress with that. But, it feels like it's taking forever. And my friend is worried, I guess, that she doesn't want me to get to a point, nor do I, want to get to a point with what gifts I have received and impart. I don't want to become the one that is worshipped. I don't. That's not what this is about.
Yeah.
I am just the vessel. I am just the messenger. I am just the conduit. And I could be anyone else who had the courage to share the story that they lived. And have it touch so many other people because of its high strangeness, because it's as weird as stuff that they've been through, and it gives them permission to express that. But she said that what I'm doing is ritualistic, I suppose, according to the actual definition of the word. Perhaps it could be interpreted as such, because I do the same thing with every single person, and she described it as, it's like you're the priest passing out the wafers, holding the chalice and passing out the wafers.
I knew
confession, after confession and doing communion. And she said it makes her very uncomfortable to see it. She has to walk away from it because she's afraid that I'm going down a dark path. Well, this is what I really want to happen. I want the galactic family to make their presence known en masse around the world. And I want their presence to fracture the belief systems that we have concocted to keep each other prisoners in a belief system that does not serve us well or our fellow human being. I want that blown apart, because I think the time has come for us to shatter that mirror and begin to look at what's between the pieces of glass. What's between the pieces of glass? The mirror is an illusion. The space in which the mirror exists is reality, and it's beyond it. It's limitless. It's limitless. But we take everything and we compress it into this piece of glass. And say, okay, now I'm looking at this, and this is reality. And I like to encourage people to take a hammer to it, or a good solid fist punch, and say, you know what, this is bullshit. And I've been indoctrinated with this dogma my whole life. And it makes no sense to me. I studied science of mind for 7 years. Raymond Charles Barker and which was an offshoot from Mary Eddy and Christian Science and all of that at the turn of the last century, and spiritual mind treatment and all of that, channeling, focusing, using your energy as a practitioner of manipulating that energy, creating manifestations. And that was literally I've got a degree in philosophy. You can't get a degree in philosophy without studying every major world religion, like to the nucleus level. And the only religion that ever even remotely made sense to me was science of mind. And yet, when I got down to the nucleus, it was just like all the rest. How much did you put in the collection plate today? Fuck you.
Right. That what?
And
for sure.
Horse you rode in on. I mean, really. And I love horses, but you know what? Get away from me. Get away from me.
No, I agree with you. And that's even when it comes to the science of mind teachers and things like that. You're right. It's like there's some great stuff there, but so much of it, when you get down to it, it's corrupted by the same religious impulses that all the others are. There are a few exceptions when it comes to that school. Individuals like Neville Goddard, I'm a huge fan of. He was very much a giver. He gave away everything he
made.
wrote. He didn't charge for his lectures. He allowed people to freely record his lectures and disseminate them if they saw fit, which is why we have so many of them, whereas we have very few of anyone else's. So there are
I do the same thing. You want to record it? You want an interview here? Run with it. Take it here.
You know what? I want to say something though, because when you were talking about, and is the friend you're referencing, is it Cass?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh God, she drives me.
Oh, I love Cass. We had we had a conversation with her when you were in Auburn Hills.
Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
I knew it was an A, a 2-word and an A. But so you were saying about how she said that it was like you were handing out the wafers, and right before you said that, I saw the picture of the Eucharist in my mind, and so when you said it, I was like, I knew you were going to say that, because we talked about on Monday in Soul School, we talked about an experience you had in the Catholic Church when they were it was communion time, the Eucharist. We would have called it the Lord's Supper in the Protestant Church, but the Eucharist. And you kind of had this sense of like, what if I eat this? Am I going to be like, what's this all about? You know what I mean? Like, what this doesn't make any sense, kind of. And you're right. In the way it's presented, it doesn't. And there's different approaches to it. And the one that I like the most is the approach that simply says the whole secret that the universe or the collective unconscious is trying to communicate to us through this symbol, this archetype now of the Eucharist, is this simple idea that, well, number one, it's this circular disc of wholeness, which is everywhere, even quote unquote flying saucers. It's the same image that's everywhere. Circular disc of wholeness, that mandalic circle. But also these wafers, you're not meant to be like putting a glorified cookie behind glass, ensconced in the fineries of a king's court and saying that this is the body of Christ. The mystery, the real mystery that the smells and bells should be awakening us to is that if you can find a manifestation of the divine in something as simple as an unleavened disc of bread, then certainly it's everywhere else. That's the mystery. The mystery isn't we're the gatekeepers, and I'm the guy who, when I say abracadabra and ring the bell, can transform bread into the body of Jesus and then offer the masses salvation if they take this in the proper way. The real secret should be, if you can find the sacred in this, you can find it anywhere, because this is actually quite profane just in terms of religious thought. And if it's here, then it's everywhere. There's nowhere that it's not. And that includes you. And it's like what you're doing is you're not telling people I'm the guy or I'm the gal. I'm the one with I'm the man with the plan. I'm the whatever. You're telling people you have this ability as much as I do.
Right.
I'm just showing you.
Let me show you how to do it so that you can pass it on. Yeah.
That's it. And you're not even saying I'm the only one who can. You're saying, look, if you can find it here, and that's what I tell people, if you can find it here in this crass piece of unleavened bread that is Jeff Turner, then it's everywhere. Surely it's in you. It's not about glorifying ourselves. It's about by saying, look, if you see something in me that you perceive as being divine in some way, you have no idea the level of, I'm going to use that word again, jacked upness I am in possession of. Yes. And if you perceive it here, believe me when I tell you that you should be able to perceive it there, because I feel less than, let's just say, I feel less than worthy to have been graced with most of what I've been graced with. But it's like, it doesn't matter. That's not the way the game works. You know what I mean? It's like we are all, as you said, the eye through which I see God, to quote Meister Eckhart, is the eye through which God sees me. It's like, so it's one and the same thing. And the funny thing is, too, it's all the different transformations I've gone through in my own life, from being a fundamentalist pastor to being a little bit more of a grace-leaning universalist pastor, to being an atheist for a season, to now being someone who still has Christian leanings, but who's definitely more of a perennialist in his theological approach, which is simply to say that I see the Prisca Theologia, or the perennial wisdom, in all things. And for me, Jesus is a symbol that unlocks that reality.
Mm-hmm.
Through all of those stages, internally, I have had the same conversation partner that I have prayed to and communicated with through the decades. That partner has not changed. Even when I was an atheist, working my thoughts out on how much I didn't believe, it was still the same internal conversation partner who's still working with me and being like, okay, yeah, no, you're right about that.
Mm-hmm.
God who would burn someone forever for that really is a dickhead. Okay, you're right about that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Yep.
But it was the same conversation partner I had when I was a kid, when I would go out in the woods and just be like, oh, Jesus, I love you. And the same conversation partner I had when I was at the altar being like, Jesus, please forgive me. I'm such a rotten, wretched sinner. And it was the same. It's the same reality. And it's poisoned by theology, certain philosophies and ideologies.
Yeah.
And when you finally let go of all that,
Yeah.
that true expression can come forth and come out, and you recognize it for what it is. And when you really recognize it for what it is, when I really had this kind of awakening experience, it did not make me feel elite or special in the sense that I'm different from everybody else. What it did for me was it unlocked, it was like I was looking at a map all of my life, but I never saw the key in the corner that told me how to read the map.
Right.
This higher elevations, this means this means that, this means the other.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw the key before. I was just trying to figure this out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And this awakening was like having the key uncovered. So now I'm like, oh my God, the same presence that I've come to know in me, it's in you, it's in you, it's in you, it's in my dog, it's in my cat, it's there, it's everywhere. Oh, everything is one thing.
Well, everything is one thing. And, one of the reasons that I pursued philosophy was in my pursuit of God.
Yeah.
Wanting to know God, wanting to know how my experiences at the farmhouse informed my faith.
Yeah.
Which is why I double majored in English and in philosophy. Where I found the bulk of my answers was with in metaphysics with the poets, and the transcendental poets. Walt Whitman, pondering the leaf of grass.
Yeah.
Walt.
Is it called the dropped handkerchief of the Lord?
Right, the dropped handkerchief of the Lord. Henry David Thoreau, one of our greatest minds, certainly one of our deepest thinkers and most profound souls that ever wandered this planet.
Yes.
What he left us with. If you never read another book for the rest of your life, read Walden, and it will profoundly change you. Emerson, Circles.
Yes.
Read just Circles.
Yeah.
In Emerson's essays, which is right there on my desk. Oh, and there's Walden. Oh, and there's Silent Spring. And oh, there's Grace and Timepiece and Gatekeeper. And, A Gift from the Sea, Anne Morrow Lindbergh. The Sacred Wood, T.S. Eliot. These are like my kids. They're all up on my desk, just right there going, you may visit me anytime that you want. Just being in their presence of these words reminds me of the impact that they had on me the first time I read them. My man cave, I can't even show you this whole wall. It's just books and metaphysical explorations of our own being and nothingness. Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir and Albert Camus, the existentialists, the living in the moment. I studied that. The most profound of all of the philosophers that I connected with, Rene Descartes, and wrote the thesis, I think, therefore I am. And in my thesis, I switched it, I flipped it, and flipped that coin and said, let's examine this from a different perspective. How about I am, therefore I think?
Hmm.
And what are the implications of that? And how do we limit our own ability to process, to come to a higher level of sorry, I have the hiccups and they won't go away, and I don't know why. Um, you know, to extrapolate all of that out, to take this seed, like the mustard seed, the proverbial mustard seed.
Yeah.
And, what are the implications of that? What are the implications of, in scripture, the pebble in the shoe? Think on that just for, a few moments. People like meditate. What am I supposed to meditate about? The grain of sand that's in your shoe that you can feel.
Yeah.
Meditate on that. Close your eyes. Go within. Go to the inner sanctum. You can feel that sand in your shoe. Where did that sand come from? From your favorite beach? Oh, then you've brought home a keepsake. How absolutely wonderful that feels. Meditate on that.
Yeah.
Go to that place of peace. We're personally responsible for our own inner peace.
Yeah.
Happiness is an inside job. It will never for any of us come from beyond to us. It is the vibration, the frequency that we resonate, what we put out, as without, so within. But if everything is one thing, then really all we're doing is just stirring the energetic pot. All we're doing is living in, expressing into the unified field of consciousness.
Yeah.
The realization of our oneness.
Yeah.
And, I had a friend recently who told me, and, we're going to have to save this for another show. And the next show that we do, I think there'll be more to report. But I have a friend who is, I would say, a visionary. Whenever I have received any information from him, it has always been precisely correct. Came to pass. Prophetic, clairvoyant, whatever you want to call it. Certainly we have a telepathic connection, certainly that. And he called me a couple of weeks ago and he said, here it comes. And what they're about to do is unconscionable. And I said, whose word is that? Is that your word? He said, yeah, because I don't think we're ready. And I said, oh, I think we're beyond ready, or they wouldn't be coming. And if you think that they're not going to, express their love for us, you're delusional. And he said, well, people are going to drop dead from shock. This is just going to be too much for people to handle. I said, that's on them. That's on them. It is. I'm so sorry. I don't want there to be any needless loss of life. Of course not. But in the awakening, you can either use a bullhorn or you can wake someone with a gentle kiss and a cup of coffee on the nightstand. So I guess in some way, you and I, especially after being at Houghton Lake at UFO Contact, we really addressed this. Both of us did. And, it is that gentle awakening, except that you don't get to go back to sleep. You can rest your mind and you can rest your body and you can have physical sleep, but you never go back to sleep up here again.
Yeah.
And I have been spending years and years and years of my life trying to kindly, gently, gingerly wake people up to the old reality that we've lived in forever, so that they can see with new eyes. Where we are, who we are, why we're here, where we come from, and where we are going. Where are we going? And we're at the gauntlet's been thrown down. I mean, we are at a pivotal point in human evolution. And I want to know, Jeff, I really want to know. I know time's an illusion. I get that. I know that. But 2 hours, and Bill just put up, we have 5 minutes, and that was 2 minutes ago. So now we have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So really? See, do you understand when I say 3D sucks, what I actually mean? These constructs and machinations of ours, when we could talk for the next 5 or 6 hours until we bore each other to sleep. But, on that note, I just want to really, from the bottom of my heart, I adore you. And I thank you for the contribution that you make to the world. Not just on this show, not just on Soul School. Your presence in the world is illuminating. You are a bright light in the firmament. And beyond my friend, my star brother. And I love you. I love your family. And I'm deeply appreciative of you coming and giving me your time tonight after undoubtedly what was a long day. But this 2 hours felt like 10 minutes to me.
Yeah, we punctured the filter tonight, and eternity streamed through for sure.
Yeah, we did.
Andrea, the feeling is 100% mutual. Love and adore you as well, as does my family. And my life has only been enriched through knowing you. And I'm honored just to still be being asked to come on and have these conversations with you. So,
oh, ditto, dude. I can't call you chick, so dude, you be dude. I mean, I'm so dating myself. Next time I'll be calling you a groovy guy. Oh God,
I'll take it.
So with that, Jeff and I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight on A World Awakening. We hope and we pray that this couple of hours made a measurable and positive difference in your lives. We love you all. God's grace. Be the light you seek. Good night.
Peace.